Hi everyone, this is Dinesh Tripathi. In this video, I'm going to help you understand what is covered in the module number 3, which is Tanzu Service Mesh. Once you log into this Learning Center portal, you will see Tanzu Service Mesh workshop icon here. And once you click on this, it's going to open a session for you. You can quickly navigate just by clicking here that what is part of this workshop. For example, you can see we'll be talking about some basic concept, what is overall scope of this workshop, what are the pre-checks, how we are going to different tasks. So this is one quick way of doing a review of topics. Second, in the left hand side here, you will see we have instructions and text, commands, everything is shown here in the left hand side. On the right hand side, you got two terminals, terminal number 1 and terminal number 2. Set of instructions that you are going to see next. Once you are going to execute them, either they will execute in terminal number 1 or 2. Most of the time, we are going to use left hand side of pane to understand the instructions and then click on those commands to execute on the right hand side. You will also see here that we have console, editor, and slides option. We will be using editor only. So in editor, we have VS Code, and some of the files that you are going to read will be over VS Code under this tab. So everything will be automatic. You do not have to click manually on any of these tabs. It will be driven by the set of commands that you will execute. So this first, at a very high level, it covers the basic concept of Tanzu Service Mesh. Again, it does not teach the basics of TSM, but it just tells what TSM is, what are the key highlights, and what is the high-level architecture of TSM. So it's just for a review purpose only. You can just go ahead, scroll down, read what is written here, and then you click on the next. So this button, which is highlighted in the blue, you are going to click in this button under every lab to go ahead and follow the instructions. You can certainly end this workshop anytime, but this is going to run for a certain period of time. So what is covered here, if you look at the workshop scope, this is very much in detail and you can just go through here. So lab number 1, preparation lab. This talks primarily about the pre-requirement, the set of things that are either already done or you are going to do as a part of preparation. Second is cluster onboarding. So as a part of Tanzu Service Mesh, you will be given 2 clusters, 2 Kubernetes cluster, one AKS, one EKS. And you are going to use those 2 clusters to onboard them on Tanzu Service Mesh and then do the remaining lab. Lab number 3 talks about the sample app that we have chosen for you, which is Acme Fitness. So this particular app, which is made up of several microservices written in different programming language, you're going to deploy these microservices either on AKS or EKS cluster. And then lab number 4, which is integrating TSM with AWS account for DNS and GSLB configuration. This is mainly the information only lab, which contains the instructions that how you can do it, but this is already done to save the time as well as to avoid the complexity of having your own AWS account, then doing the integration. So this is already done, but certainly lab contains instructions how to do it, and feel free to go through those instructions. Lab number 5 also same, where it is information only lab, and this is management of certificate used by Tanzu Service Mesh. So when we are going to have application discovered by Tanzu Service Mesh, and when it is accessed by end users from internet, we would like to provide it over HTTPS, and that's where we will need certificate. So the certificates are pre-created using Let's Encrypt, and the certificates are already uploaded on Tanzu Service Mesh, which you are going to use in the workshop. This lab covers how to create certificate, how to upload certificate. So go ahead, take a look at the instructions. but this is already done for all the students. Lab number 6 covers global namespace management, and this is one of the key topic within Tanzu Service Mesh. So when you have couple of clusters, your application is spread across multiple cluster, and you want to allow those services to talk to each other, then you are going to use the concept of global namespace. So in this lab, you will create a global namespace. You will select the clusters where you have application deployed. In this case, it is AKS and EKS, and then the mapping data will be created on both sides of clusters. So this is what you're going to do as a part of global namespace management exercise. Next is policy management. And policy management, there are two types of policies. One is SLO, another is auto scaling. So SLO is service level objective, where you are going to create a policy to monitor the defined SLO for a given service, right? And similarly, auto scaling policy, if there is a more load on a given service, you want to auto scale. So you're going to define both policies. You're going to also push the load by load generator to the front end service of the SACME fitness application. And then you are going to notice that the application is going to auto scale based on the load. And lab number 8 talks about software upgrades. And this is primarily around TSM data plane component, which is running on a Kubernetes clusters. So upgrading those components over a period of time, you may see that there are going to be upgrades. So it's just a click of button task, which you are going to do under this lab. And finally, lab number 9, where you are going to perform cleanup. So whatever you have done in the above labs, you are just going to clean up those resources, and then you can finish the workshop. So at a high level, this is the scope. And then go ahead and click on start workshop. Whatever I have just tasked, whatever I have just described under each lab, you are going to really see the instructions here. So go ahead, first read the instructions. It is designed in such a way that first it talks about what is this lab is all about. So this lab is all about preparation steps. What are the set of tasks that you are going to execute under this lab? They are written here in the bullet points. And then each task described here with a set of steps that how you are going to fulfill those tasks. If those tasks are marked as an optional, you may skip them because they might be already done. It does not mean that they are not necessary for TSM, but they might be already done. So I would certainly encourage you to go ahead and look at the instructions and understand how this can be done. Though even you're not doing it, but take a look at the instruction and familiarize yourself. So under this lab, we have several tasks. Pretty much you can see most of them are optional. Then task number 6, where you're going to configure the access of those clusters from this terminal. So as I said, we have two clusters, AKS and EKS. They are pre-created. So which means you are going to configure the access of both clusters from this terminal, and that is what you are going to do here, right? So just click on this. Once you click on this, it's going to execute the set of instructions here. For example, if I say kubectl config get context, if I click on this command, you will see that right now there are no AKS and EKS clusters, just the default cluster where Tanzu service, where we have this workshop running. Then click on next. Next is cluster onboarding. And as you can see, this is lab number 2. This talks about what this lab is going to do. Similar pattern, this contains objectives and tasks. And you are going to execute task number 1, because you see task number 2 and 3 are different ways of doing the same task. So I recommend you go and explore the instructions just by clicking here. But for the purpose of this workshop, you are going to use you're going to run task number 1 and option number 1. So go ahead, use this and onboard your clusters to Tanzu Service Mesh just by following the instructions here. Read the instructions carefully because they are important. If you miss any of these instructions, your next step might fail. Then click on the deploy app. And again, similar pattern, you have what this lab is going to do. You got set of tasks, then follow the task step by step and just do the set of task, right? So as I was saying, you are going to also use editor. So for example, if I click on this icon, you're going to see that it's going to switch from terminal to editor automatically. And it is going to open the VS Code editor here, and then it is going to show you the readme.md file, right? So as you can see here, we have VS Code editor opened, and it is going to open the file. Notice that it is still orange. So if this command is successful, it's going to turn green. So wait for that before you move to the next step. And if you have to come back to terminal, you can certainly click on terminal and come back, or you can just execute one of the command. It will automatically take you to the terminal. So this is about deploying application. Task 2 covers deploying second part of application on an EKS cluster, and then validating the application services on a Tanzu Service Mesh. For example, these are the set of services which you have deployed on a cluster, and then also accessing the Acme Fitness application, which you can do just by getting the IP address from here, and then taking this URL, opening it to your browser. Next is TSM integration. And as I said, this is information only lab. So pretty much things are done, but I would encourage you to go ahead, take a look at the instructions, how you can configure AWS account, how you can create a DNS account, that you can understand from the instructions. Next is certificate management. Again, this is information only lab, but requesting you to go ahead and take a look at the instructions, because you are going to do on your own in the real environments. So this talks about creating certificate using Let's Encrypt, and then uploading the certificate on TSM, because when you are going to create global namespace and you're going to expose service over HTTPS, you are going to use these certificates. Next is global namespace. So this is an important concept. You can open a document, take a look at it. But at a high level, this talks about how you are going to create global namespace, what are the set of parameters required. You can use these parameter. And remember, where you have this copy icon, you just click on this text and you will notice that this icon is filling for a bit and then going away, which means your text is copied. For example, if I put here, it is copied, right? So I would encourage you to utilize that functionality to avoid typing error, and it will be really easy for you to just click. It will get copied in your clipboard, and then you can paste, whether it is on terminal, whether it is on browser. So this talks about the global namespace creation method. And once this is done, then you are going to see that you're going to validate that how both cluster services are mapped together, and eventually you will see that your application services spread across different clusters, but you have a central entry point and it is talking to the services running on different clusters. Next is policy management. And policy management, as I said, covers about service level objective policies and auto scaling policies. So again, this labs talks about different ways of creating SLO policies. You can certainly go ahead and create SLO by using all the different options, or you can just go ahead, create using UI, and certainly explore the instructions that how you can create SLO by using different methods. I would encourage you to go ahead and try adding a new auto scaling policy for sure, because this is going to give you a sense that how you can configure auto scaling policy, how you can generate the load, and you will really see that how your service is scaling based on the load. So that's what is covered under policy management. It is a bit big lab, because I'm covering different ways of creating SLO policies. You can try out one and understand the instructions so that you can try out rest in your environment. Next is TSM upgrades. And you might see that you may not have anything to upgrade, right? Because when you are onboarding your cluster immediately, you might not have upgrade, and you may see that this is up to date already. But over a period of time, there will be an updates, and you can follow the document given here to upgrade your data plane component, which is very straightforward. Last, cleanup. So you are going to perform a cleanup of the task that you have done. For example, onboarded clusters, created global namespace, created policies. So you're going to delete the global namespace, offboard the clusters, and delete the auto scaling policies and other policies. And you're not going to delete the clusters in reality. You're just going to offboard the content from Tanzu Service Mesh, and that's all you will be doing under cleanup. And finally, you can just read through the workshop summary, what all you have done. And I have also given you additional resources to go through offline. So I would recommend copy and paste them somewhere safely so that you can go through these documentation. So now to end this workshop, either you can click on end workshop or you can click on finish workshop. Once you say finish workshop, it's going to prompt and you can click on end and you are done. Thank you for watching.